just gotten started in these 50 more years. Don't know where to start. I don't usually show up here in front of a microphone with a script, and tonight's no different. I got a name on here that I wanted to make sure that I got right. But other than that, I'm going to speak from the heart like I always have. I'm going to touch on both sides briefly on the common sense gun control. It's a tight pattern. And if you have a gun, make sure it's loaded. An empty gun is a hammer. Right? Don't leave home with the thing empty. Now, the rest, I feel compelled when I get up and talk about this, and actually in many subjects, come back to our views of rights. And what I think is absolutely essential is that we start really aggressively grooming our own ranks. And in fact, anyone that we break out in a conversation with on matters, constitutional matters, is that the moment someone says they have a constitutional right for anything, you stop the conversation and remind them that rights come from God. The Constitution. It's the rule book for government. It's a limiting document. It isn't a starting point for them to regulate from. It's a warning. Do not cross these lines. So the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, they were pretty solid. We've got to start looking at how the other amendments came about. The impetus and the incentives to bring these about. For example, a lot of times, and I see this within the Tea Party ranks and a lot of different ranks, is we get this passionate group of people that come in, the sovereigns we call them. All right, they come in and they assert themselves, and a lot like me, I asserted many times before that when you make application to something or accept a license for something, you've immediately turned a right into a privilege. Okay, and what often happens is these folks, they think they get their rights from a constitution when the Constitution can be perverted by a government quite easily. And if you look at these people, the sovereigns we call them, who feel sovereign in and of themselves, sovereignty at the state level, however they approach you, it's worthy of us to do a little bit of research from a historical perspective. Because not every initiative or every group can be all wrong in everything. So as I studied the 14th Amendment, I noticed a couple of things that were kind of odd. One is, like in the Second Amendment, that's the only time in the Constitution you'll hear the word that something is essential, that being the right to bear arms. Now you look at the 14th Amendment, that's the first time we were all referred to as subjects. Yeah. Subject to who? If we're the ultimate sovereign, we're supposed to be in charge. If we're the individuals by which the Constitution was written to protect, then what are we subjects of? We've got to start asking ourselves that question. And if you go a little bit deeper down that rabbit hole, and I suggest you do, take the 14th Amendment, where obviously it was wrong to enslave blacks. It's no less wrong to enslave everybody, because that's what has happened. We've become corporatized. Look at the Reconstruction Act. We started a whole new form of government, which was not what our founders created for us. Heard a lot about the media. I agree to a large extent with everything that I've heard. It has become very biased. And even Fox News, they're just a different flavor, more propaganda from what I see. All right? What was it, 2 years ago, I think it was. It was after my rant in North Brookfield. I had Channel 22 get a hold of me, and they wanted me to do a panel discussion with a guy named Jerry Belair. I don't know if y'all remember him. He's from Stop Handgun Violence. It's a nonprofit out in Newton. Showed up out in Holliston after the Connecticut debacle. And he's all about common sense gun control. I was about ready to flip the table and walk out on that interview. The two things that these guys do, and they do it over and over again, is they will try to pigeonhole the discussion. Now, this is the Second Amendment discussion about the right to keep and bear arms. And all of a sudden, Mr. Belair fights in talking about sport shooting and hunting, and do you really need an AR-15 to kill a deer? I said, I thought I was here for a discussion about the Second Amendment. If you want to talk about hunting regulations, I think we need to relabel the show. All right? It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. The Second Amendment is for two things. And I try to boil this down because the progressives and the liberals really are very simple creatures, although they get complex and all scatterbrained and the other mouth runs. There's two things. Individual protection, all right? If someone's crawling through your window at night, all right, when seconds count, cops are minutes away. If you reach for your nightstand and pick up the phone, they're going to come and put up caution tape and hose off the crime scene. They're going to hose your family off the wall. If you reach for your nightstand, grab your Glock and light the place up, right. You now saved a lot of money because you don't want these guys going through this long, archaic judicial system, which is also broken, might I add. You save the taxpayers a lot of money. That's what happens. Now, you got personal defense and fighting tyranny. The Second Amendment, I'm telling you, the founders roll in their grave when we start talking about hunting and target shooting. It is not about that. It's about killing tyrants. All right? That is what it's about. I am advocating that we adhere to it. The Constitution is the law of the land. In natural law, it means you do fight for your own survival. And when faced with tyranny, and this Bel Air guy, he goes, Dave, are you telling me we've got the hugest army in the world? We've got bombers and drones and the highest technology weaponry you can imagine. You think you're going to fight them? And I said, yes, with sticks and stones if I have to. Right. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather have an AR-15 in my hand. I mean, if you can afford an Apache helicopter, darn it, I'll buy one.
Army surplus.
I'm telling you what, that's the way it is. The founders knew it, and we've got to talk that language. Do not let them talk hunting. And when they want to talk about why the Second Amendment's there, personal defense and killing tyrants. It is that simple. We've got to let them know that tyranny is out there and amongst us. Because it is. When you have a federal government that comes to a farmer, goes after them, sues them in court, unfortunately successfully, for growing their own feed corn for their animals, and they say otherwise you'd be forced to buy it on the international market. What does that translate to? Do you understand what they've done? How they've perverted the Commerce Clause? The Social Welfare Clause of the Constitution? They've used those two things to ratchet down on 90% of the regulation that we see. It's one layer of the onion after another after another. Regulating commerce isn't about layers of regulation. It's about keeping it regular. It's so that if I make a widget here in Massachusetts, I can send it to Maine without New Hampshire blocking me. We can use their roadways. It's about regulating commerce, not with regulation, keeping it regular. And you can't turn on the TV without them perverting that. That's all you can call it. It's a perversion of what it is supposed to be. Are we in trouble in this country? I say yes. Yes. I think we are. The number 13%, I think is probably accurate for those who admit to having guns in their home. It didn't fool me. It didn't fool me. I'm not one of those 13%. And I think there's probably others too. I'm not going to get down on bended knee, and I'm not going to make application for something that God has given me, and that is the right to defend myself in the means of the day. So that's a statistic I believe is correct in the sense that people are voluntarily willing to answer that question. But we're in trouble. People know that they're coming after our guns, and every time they've tried to disarm a nation, slavery has followed.
That's right.
Right? Wisconsin, when the state of Wisconsin opens up its hunting season, I believe they're like the fourth largest standing army in the world at that point. These people go out and they hunt for an entire season, and usually no one even gets hurt. So this gun safety thing is a big mess. All right? We need to reinstall in people. What I heard about taking new people out to the gun range is dead on. I've done this a number of times. It takes the fear out of it. It's an object. They hold it in their hand. It doesn't kill people. Crazy people kill people.
Yes.
And when they feel empowered, they shoot that thing, they understand what it is, what it does. And I tell you, I got more faith in your average person than I do government in preventing these horrible things from killing people. We've got to look at ourselves. We've got to dig deep. And I'm telling you, the day is going to come. The people in this room are going to see it, where they are going to come for our guns on a big scale. I don't know if you're reading the news about the trade agreements that are going on. There's some bad stuff that's going to get slipped in here. And pretty soon, imports, ammunition, things like that.
Dave, I don't want to interrupt your speech at all, but the New York SAFE Act, I don't know if you guys were aware of this, New York is now going door-to-door confiscating. What they're doing is they're cross-referencing HIPAA records of people who are taking things like Lumesta and Xanax against firearm owners. And when they find a match, they go, knock, 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 we're here to take.
And that's just one example of multiple ways they can cross-reference and profile you. And I got to tell you, I have no filters when it comes to this. I've said this out loud many times, is that I'm not going to be disarmed. I don't have an FID, don't care if I have one. And the day is going to come where civil disobedience is going to be in order. For the people in this room, not your kids and your grandkids. And let's hope and pray that it is now. If they want to have that battle, let it be now while we're alive. My kids are out there struggling, and I don't want them to grow up in a disarmed America. That cannot happen. It's the only thing that's staving tyranny off right now. But how much trouble are we in? Millions of hollow point bullets are being purchased by the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security. Hollow points are illegal under the Geneva Convention to use in a war theater, so we're obviously not stockpiling these to give them to the National Guard to go over and defend another nation. And this is a department that's focused on domestic surveillance. How can you not feel that those hollow point bullets are aimed at each and every one of you?
Exactly.
That's what they're meant for. And don't wait. Do not wait for the knock on your door. I gave that up a long time ago. I will go out and I'll fight for my neighbors, and you all have to too. Because it's when they knock on your neighbor's door and they're starting to ramp this up, they need to feel the pinch that we're right there and we are going to fight for our neighbors. Don't let them kick one door down without resistance. Not one door. So we've got to fight for them. And sisters and oath keepers. How many oath keepers are in the room? All right. I'm playing up, but not bad, not bad. These guys have been doing a great job. They're out there doing just what I just said. They're going out to the ranchers that are getting the shakedown, and they're putting up resistance, and they're keeping some bad characters at bay. And although that's a much more organized and a national group that's doing that, don't let anyone in your own hometown be disarmed. Your own police chiefs arbitrarily, many times, will decline a license to carry for no reason. Know the law. But most people just walk away afterwards. You've got to know the law, get an advocate. There are advocates within Oath Keepers that will help you. All right? We cannot ever, ever allow ourselves to be so complacent to think the government knows best in this. All right? There's no way. As we move into the coming years, I see economic problems that are going to cause destabilization, the riots that are going on right now. I mean, many of these are being fueled by the system of government. You all remember that video that went around not too long ago when the riots first started up? there was a bunch in the back, and there happened to be a cameraman in the back of the crowd. They were expecting problems with this particular event. And this cameraman was literally behind all the crowd in front of him. And these couple of dudes come up, they looked a little bit odd, but they were kind of dressed like protesters and their faces covered and everything. And he noticed a couple of them bend down and pick up rocks. They were sitting there about ready to whip them up over the group of the cops on the other side. And of course, the militarized police were right there behind them watching. And whoever it was on the camera, I can't remember right now, called them out. Of course, it said it was a lie and everything the day that it happened. About a week later, the chief of police came out and said, yeah, well, those guys were on payroll. 8 provocateurs
Oh my God.
to go to these events
Yep.
and start an uprising so that the thugs can come in and do a beat down on people protesting. Right? But you gotta watch this stuff. When you go to these events, watch the people around you. You're gonna have agitators there that are gonna be more than happy to start a ruckus, to have your voice quelled. And worse yet, beaten down and dragged out of there.
Black Panthers?
You know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for an hour or two just in examples of where an opportunity for free speech and the sharing of information is populated by agitators. I've seen it myself in other political environments. So, you know, when it comes to the Second Amendment, it's a God-given right, not with the stolen government. We gotta tell people that every single time we are challenged on this issue. And again, it's not about unsafe sport shooting. No, it's about killing tyrants. That gets their cockles up when I actually advocate to kill somebody. But it's only if they're tyrants, it's okay, because that's what Americans do. We've killed tyrants in this country right on the battle green before. They came in for our guns then. Boy, I imagine the little tax increase they had on tea back then, and look at what happened. Look at what we're enduring now. Can you think of anything that you do or use that is not taxed into oblivion? They're going after your necessities: energy, water, transportation, medicine, Obamacare. All the focus is on the productive. You old folks or you unborn babies, if you're not wanted, Obamacare's got a solution for you. Well, notice I don't call him President Obama. Notice I don't say I tell people he's not impeachable either. He's got to be a valid sitting president to be impeached. Congress, on the other hand, those bastards are impeachable. And I say we do. If they're not going to stick up for us, let's start a movement on them. I tell you, this compromise, this, I really wish Goal had come here. They've done some good things. I've had Jim Wallace on my show twice. What happened to Goal?
What happened to it? Tell us.
We are a compromise. There are some things that you don't compromise on, and they're dabbling and playing in that little pig pen right now. I haven't written them off completely yet, but I'll tell you one thing. If Jim and I ever sit down at the table again to do an interview, I'm going to have some tough questions for him. And I am going to grill him on his future vision for compromise with my God-given rights. So Jim, if you see this, love your brother, but you got to get back on track. All right, we need all the gun advocates we can. They were shining stars here in the state for a long time, and they stubbed their toe. And it's the membership that's got to speak up. How many Goal members in this room?
Was.
You have got to communicate very effectively to the leadership what you are willing to tolerate out of this organization any farther. Seriously. Every single one of you, don't just make it a hit piece. Tell them why. Be polite, succinct, and to the point. This is not the time for compromise. We've got the left for that. We are not going to compromise on these matters any longer. I'm gonna not go into some of the comments that you probably saw in the North Brookfield rant. Some of it's old news. I want to look to the future. I want to talk about what we're facing here in the not too distant future. And I'll tell you, like I said, with the free trade agreements, that's just one behemoth. There's a lot of pieces of legislation out there. If they're not already ginormous, will be. They love throwing these riders on. You'll find something that has to pass, and the political left, the gun grabbers, will attach these riders to them. We've always got to be on the lookout for that. And resistance has got to be immediate. And what I would ask them, you know, I stopped going in and saying, good Lord, can you please not trample my rights anymore? Can you please not go after innocent gun owners? And begging, basically. I'm through begging. I go in and I ask them, and I want to set a different tone with them now. I walk in and I say, this is very unfortunate. There's a set of laws here that I have absolutely no intent on observing. When I refuse to give up my guns, will a local federalized police officer knock on my door? Or will it be a drone? When you drag me out of my home, which you'll have to do, will I go before a jury of my peers, or will it be some military tribunal? Set the tone that you have already resolved in your head, that you've already drawn that line in the sand, that you're not going to get my guns willingly. Let them know that you, and that's just me, and they hear that 100 times, that they are going to have to go in and literally assault a good American just to get their way. When you have to use that level of government force to make their ideas in their head good ideas in your head, something is wrong. You don't need that kind of force for a good idea. These are bad ideas. And our elected officials, they better hear it from us loud and clear. And not in a compromising, wavering voice either. Tell them, I am resisting. I am saying no. What are you going to do? What law are you going to pass now? You got laws against crackheads doing crack. You can put laws for, on bad people not owning guns, but they do. You'll never ever stop the criminal element from getting a gun. And they got to stop it. All they're doing is punishing us. The people that do obey the law are now left defenseless. Well, I say no. And I think you all should say no as well. There's some things that we're not going to compromise any further. This is one of them. I mean, they trampled just about every amendment in the Constitution. Let's look at the First Amendment. You know, I'll tell you this. When a president comes to town, and his staffers go out there, and they want to cleanse the area so as the big media pans their cameras around, they don't see any resistance, any protest to the president or whoever, whatever elected Republican is coming to town. They cleanse the area, and they say, over here is your free speech zone. I'm here to tell you the whole country is a free speech zone. It doesn't promise to change anything. I don't want to be herded into that chain link fence either. That is not where free speech lives. It lives wherever you are. You preach every day from your heart, wherever you are. And, you know, our kids, a lot of what motivates me is that we look at the youth. You're all familiar with Commie Corps, I'm sure. What do you think this next generation coming out of school is going to think about your rights, whether it's your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, any amendment? Their view of history is so skewed. It's a shame. People are going to burn in hell for what they're doing to these kids' minds. I believe that truly.
Yeah.
All right? If you've got kids, if you've got grandkids, if your neighbor's got kids, talk to these young people. I'm telling you, you are the only thing between a subject population and a free people. We've already gone a generation too long, a couple generations too long. We're perilously close to losing it all right now.
Look at Jesse Waters on the Riley at college campuses.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
my Lord.
How mindless these people are.
They have no idea of where they came from. You know, they really have lost grip. And we have got to reach out and adopt a child. I mean,
Teach 'em.
you know, right.
Big brother.
Mentally adopt a child
Big brother.
and teach them the basics of life and being good to one another. I mean, I may get up here and get all excitable, but you know what? This is really about love for one another.
Yeah.
Not wanting to be under an oppressive thumb. These young people, they're rebellious. I'm telling you, if you capture them at the right age, their school is giving them, feeding them things to be rebellious about. They just love to rebel and protest. We've got to tap into that. But I tell you, I've got a great amount of respect for two things as long as I've been an activist. Number one is tapping into that mama bear instinct. I tell you, the lady patriots out there, when they feel that they and their family are under attack, I tell you, they're some of the strongest activists I've seen.
That's right.
And they come alive, and I love to see that.
God bless you, Dave.
And the youth are the same way. These kids, when that blood starts pumping through their veins and you get bit by that liberty bug, I gotta tell you, and with these young kids, we gotta plant that seed with them. Plant it early, nourish that seed as much as you can, and when they hit that age of rebelliousness, don't let them quite go over the edge, but don't let them lose the edge that they have. Stay with them, and you can't lose another generation.